Hi everyone, thank you for joining. Ooh, I have like a new tripod and I think maybe it's not so sturdy. I need to like just not touch it. We are waiting on our guest to join us.
Hello.
All right, there we go.
Hey,
Hey, how are you?
pretty good, Catherine. Good to see you.
Good to see you as well. So, for those of you that are just now joining us, this is our post Wage Theft Live. I know you all were expecting to see Jesse's amazing, gorgeous face. We do have a sub in, Jordan. Um, just as beautiful, just as gorgeous.
Thank you.
Also with ROC United. And now you just get to meet someone else and hear someone else's background and experience and stories to share. So Jordan, since folks aren't familiar with you, do you want to like maybe introduce yourself, or I guess,
Sure.
do you want to go first? I'm fine with that.
Yeah. Hey, everyone. So I'm Jordan. I'm with the nonprofit, the Restaurant Opportunity Centers United. We have worked with Catherine a lot over the past year. I've had the privilege of working for ROC for about 10 years now. I helped start the Pittsburgh chapter. Nowadays, I get to hang out on TikTok and do some other cool digital stuff. Jesse's pretty busy today, so I get to sub in and hang out on TikTok, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, Jesse is warmed up, prepped, ready to go, ready to boogie down with our staying alive theme, right? I look forward to seeing your dance moves, maybe. I'm just kidding.
Let's see.
um, so yeah, and then we've also got Ask Rock in the comments. So if for whatever reason, we can't get to all the questions, and hopefully there will be lots of questions. You might be seeing some responses from Ask Rock in the comments. But if you don't know me, my name is Catherine. I'm a former restaurant worker here in Philadelphia, and I experienced wage theft while working for a restaurant called Bernie's here in Philly. Ended up blasting my employer here on TikTok. It kind of blew up a little bit. Got paid, got my coworkers paid, but now I'm kind of advocating, against wage theft, sort of trying to increase awareness about wage theft, and just sort of bring more light to this egregious problem so that hopefully we can decrease the amount of wage theft instances in the future and prevent other folks from having to blast their employer on TikTok in order to get paid, because not everybody has that option, obviously. So anyways, we here on my account, oh, we lost Jordan. Hold on. He'll come back. Oh. You back?
Yeah, I'm not sure what happened. I've been listening the whole time. It just booted me out.
Oh, okay. I don't know what happened either. I was just like, you disappeared, and I was like, what? Where did you go? All right. So minor technical difficulty, but we're rocking and rolling now. So just to kind of, I guess give some context to our live today, we've been talking a lot about the wage theft process. So whether like what wage theft looks like specifically, how to identify it, right? And then the claim process. So, like, how do you gather evidence to submit your claim? Where do you submit your claim? That kind of thing. But I, kind of realized recently, on my own personal page at least, I haven't really talked too much about, what happens after you file that wage theft complaint, because it doesn't all just magically, a nice pretty box arrives on your doorstep with your money in it, right? Like immediately after you hit
Yep.
submit. So so we're going to talk about that here today. We're going to talk about, what happens, what to expect, what are your rights kind of within the investigation piece, how long this process might take, and just sort of generally outline some expectations, I guess. Yeah, so anyways, we can kind of just jump into the content. So to set the scene, you've filed your wage theft complaint, you've submitted all your evidence, and now what happens? So the specific, Department of Labor entity, right? Whether it's the US or the state, or if you're in a major city and your city has one, they're going to review that evidence. They're going to take a look at everything that you got together and submitted to them, and they're going to determine whether they feel like an investigation is necessary. So I guess to me, that means they're going to kind of take a look at your evidence and sort of determine whether they feel like there's a high likelihood of wage theft there, or whether maybe it's just like a misunderstanding. Would you kind of agree with that, Jordan, based on your experience?
Yeah, they definitely want you to take an honest attempt to talk to your employer first to make sure there actually is like a real issue there. But anything you have that actually there's, lost wages, missing paychecks, overtime, anything like that, absolutely is a good to file, and they will take that seriously.
Yeah. So what happens when they launch an investigation, right? So you're going to get assigned an actual, someone whose title is investigator. Their job is to investigate these claims. They work for the Department of Labor. They're going to reach out to you. They're going to ask you some follow-up questions, ask you to maybe go into a little bit more detail, because on your wage theft complaint, you're really just kind of providing a summary of like your experience. It's not, it's not like a whole page, like when you're in high school and you type a paper, it's not like a page or two sort of thing. It's maybe like a paragraph or two of a summary. So they're going to ask you some follow-up questions of what happened, how often this happened, what did you do, what did your coworkers do, timelines, when did this happen, when did your employer say that, etc., just to get a more clear and thorough understanding of the situation. And then they are probably going to reach out to your employer. Now, don't want anybody to get scared off by that. As we have talked, a lot and tried to emphasize a lot, the wage theft complaint is confidential. So you have the right for them to not tell your employer who you are, when they reach out to your employer. And they're going to honor that. Like, they're not going to just say that it's confidential and then, but your employer knows that it's you. Like, if you've sort of been laying low and you haven't really if you've been following a lot of the advice that we've suggested in terms of like being cautious of who you talk to, making sure that you're diplomatic with your employer, like you're not threatening him, whatever, they probably won't know that it's you, especially if you're not the only one upset about the wage theft situation at your place of work, right? Like, wouldn't you agree with that, Jordan? Like, if there's 10 of you that are upset, he's got a 1 in 10 chance of figuring out like possibly who it is. But also, like, there could be folks that are upset but are just like, they're not quite as verbal, right? But they're behind the scenes, they're like taking notes and filing their wage theft complaint.
Yeah, I mean, chances are if your wages are missing or you're suspecting something, chances are it's happening to pretty much everyone else. An employer, if they're going to break the law, they're not going to like nitpick. It's usually more of a systemic issue of skimming tips or not paying overtime. So you should feel safe working with the DOL. They are your friend in this context. Like, they are a watchdog. The reason why they're asking so many questions is because oftentimes there are actually more legal issues than what we originally see. And it's their job to do a thorough audit to really find out everything and make sure all the hours you work, everything you do, you're owed every last single penny. And that's their job, to recoup that money.
Exactly. So I wouldn't, definitely be cautious, be watchful, but I wouldn't, let the worry of your employer finding out that it's you, like, prevent you from filing this wage theft complaint. And so it, according to the DOL website, it can take anywhere from, 2 business days to maybe a couple business days longer for them to assign you an investigator. So you should, in theory, hear from someone fairly quickly after submitting your wage theft complaint. But as we know, sometimes things fall through the cracks or what have you. So like if you don't hear anything from them, the important part is to follow up. So, you want to be sort of trying to make sure that they understand that you're still interested in pursuing this case. You're kind of nagging them like, mom nags you, like, clean your room, like kind of nag them a little bit. Like, I haven't heard anything about my wage theft complaint. Like, like within reason, obviously, like, don't be calling them 5 times a day. But, if you haven't heard from them after 2 weeks, follow up with them. And then if they say, oh, yes, we'll get you an investigator, but then, a couple more business days go by and you still haven't heard anything, follow up again. Shouldn't be like that, but as we know, sometimes things aren't always perfect. So that's sort of, step one is that you get assigned an investigator, but make sure you follow up to ensure that you do get an investigator. And when your investigator reaches out to your employer, they are going to get a statement from your employer. They're also going to look at employee records and payment records and payroll records to sort of, compare the two, basically. So we're going to also get into some scenarios that we've seen sort of play out after filing that complaint. So let's say it's not just you filing this complaint. Let's say that, you've organized with your coworkers, there's 5 or 6 of you all who are, we deserve this money, which you do 100%. And you're all filing, right? And you're sort of trying to go at this like as a group effort, right? Because there's power in numbers. Yeah. So what are a couple of those scenarios? I don't know if you want to get into any of them, Jordan. You and your coworkers get nervous that you'll all be found out. That's one example. Fear of retaliation is definitely another one. And then like, what does retaliation look like? Or, sometimes workers leave that restaurant and go on and find more work, but they stay in the fight. So there's a variety of ways in which like you can continue to fight your case, and it looks different for everyone.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of retaliation, it is quite rare. Usually once people file, you have more documentation than ever that you are protected. But we have seen people, or at least have the fear of like getting fired or their hours cut, intimidation, anything like that. And sometimes people do leave their jobs because they're already a lousy job, but you can definitely still pursue the case. That is your money and you are owed every last penny. So yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think like maybe a good example is like you're walking down the street and somebody, if you carry a purse, for example, like a bag over your shoulder or something, they take your purse. They run off. It has all your money, all your credit cards, all your cash, whatever, in your wallet that's inside of the purse, right? And then the next day, the cops find your wallet, has all your money in it. They haven't, all your credit cards, your driver's license, nothing's gone, but they took the purse, right? You can go out and get a new purse, but the cops are still going to hopefully, maybe, if it's an expensive purse. Maybe this was the best analogy. They're still going to try to figure out who stole your purse, right? Like you still experienced that theft, even though like you've now gotten a new purse. So even though you got a new job, you still experienced wage theft, even though you're not working at that restaurant anymore. So come up with your own scenario, folks in the audience, of like how you can sort of maybe think about that. But the theft doesn't go away just because you've found hopefully a better employer. Yeah, I mean, sometimes folks drop out of this fight, right? Like they get super nervous about getting found out, that they just like, they're like, I'm not going to pursue my case anymore. I'm going to withdraw my complaint or whatever. It's important to like reassure folks that like the likelihood of your employer finding out that it is you if you're taking the appropriate cautionary steps is low. So, don't all be in a group in the corner at the back of the, restaurant, or, in the service area that's just for servers, or like in the corner of the kitchen whispering to each other, and like, you know what I mean? Like, don't make it obvious, basically. Like, talk about it after hours, like, make a group chat, like, don't talk about it like at work. So if you're creating boundaries and everyone's following those boundaries, then you can have a lot more assurance that you can continue to keep this job and keep working while you maybe look for something else, and not have that fear that you're going to get found out and like possibly fired or something like that, which, as Jordan already said, is illegal, but it does happen. And if it happens, obviously you can file a complaint about that, but you're still out of a job, and that's more, that creates hurdles for you and stress on you, and that's not our goal here. And then, sometimes you're going to find your employer who they may, in certain scenarios, if they find out that you've filed, or they suspect that you've filed, or that you are maybe a little bit just, upset about the situation, they may try to bribe you. They may try to offer you some more money. I don't know if Jordan, have ever known anybody who has been offered a bribe, or, whatever in your experience.
Yeah, we've seen, it was a case down in DC where, I'm not gonna name the employer, the worker, but, they tried to bribe a few folks, with like a nice chunk of money, and it was hard to resist, I would say, if I was in their shoes. But I think that's a good time to talk about like solidarity and kind of working together as a team, because end of the day, if it's happening to you, it's probably happening to your coworkers, and it's probably gonna happen to people who work there in the future. This is a behavior, and the best way to stop a behavior like this is by holding them accountable.
Yeah.
And ultimately, you're going to get the money that you are owed, and as will all your coworkers. So you just got to really push through the process and trust your coworkers and yourself.
Exactly, 100%. So just know that, like, whether your coworkers are trying to sway you, or your employer's trying to bribe you, or other folks are getting nervous, just try to reassure them. Don't fall into the trap of, a bribe. Don't think that, like, if you get paid after a couple of days, it's never going to happen again, or whatever. Like, oftentimes behavior doesn't change. And so, like, if your employer exhibited this behavior once, they're probably going to exhibit this behavior again. It would be an extremely rare scenario for, and probably more of a miscommunication or a misunderstanding of the law, for it to be like a one and done kind of scenario. So, at this point in this, in your wage theft process, you've, got a group, you're feeling good, you've got an investigator, your investor is going to start reaching out. They are going to also, not only are they going to reach out to your employer, they're going to reach out to other colleagues and coworkers as well. So regardless of whether they've filed a complaint or not, the Department of Labor is going to be trying to sort of gather multiple sides of the story, I guess, or like, they're not going to be saying, this is what I heard. They're just going to be calling and saying, this is the Department of Labor. We have some questions, about your experience working for Bernie's in Manayunk. Talk to me about, like, did you ever miss a paycheck? Was your paycheck ever short? That kind of thing. So they're not going to be like exposing, they're not going to be like, this is the story that Catherine reported line by line. They're going to kind of ask some open-ended questions, but very targeted, to determine what is going on there, and how, whether it's just happening to one person, 10 people, the whole restaurant, that kind of thing.
Yeah, and I think the deal, while they may be slow, but they are very thorough, right? They do their due diligence. They're looking to find every single relevant fact to your case. And so that's what they will do from the beginning till the end.
Exactly. So make sure that, whether you filed that complaint or not, if you were gathering any evidence or you have, a timeline mapped out, make sure you have that in front of you when you are talking to the Department of Labor. But I do want to, talk about sort of what are your rights within that investigation process, even if you aren't the person that filed that complaint. Maybe you're someone who just got that phone call because somebody else filed that complaint, right? So if a Department of Labor investigator reaches out to you specifically, that is also confidential. So whether you speak to the Department of Labor or not, they will not tell your employer that. They won't tell the person who filed the complaint that. They won't tell anybody else. So everything is confidential. Even the person that filed the complaint isn't going to know who talked and who said what and what they verified, what they didn't verify. They'll sort of maybe get like a summary at the end, like the employer was found guilty of wage theft. This is the specific violation. You, Jordan, are now owed this amount of money by the employer. You know what I mean? And then whether if you have a group of friends and or that are also your coworkers and they also filed, and if they choose to tell you that, then that's one thing and that's fine. But the Department of Labor, is not going to reveal that. And then, while we always recommend talking with the Department of Labor because it is important, even if you aren't the person that filed this complaint, to be able to provide them with a full picture, you do have the right to refuse to talk to the Department of Labor. So if you are really nervous and unsure about it, you do not have to talk to them if they reach out to you. I will also say that, if for whatever reason they are contacting you, maybe they're going up to your place of work and trying to talk to folks, you can request a private meeting. So you don't have to meet with them in a situation where you are afraid that people will see you talking to them. Their goal is to protect your privacy and to make you feel comfortable if you are choosing to talk about what's going on at your place of work.
Yeah, and the DOL, I believe the statute of limitations is 2 years. It may be 3 years if it's willful intention. So if you're in a precarious financial situation and you want to do something about it, but maybe you need a minute to kind of get your ducks in a row, it is totally fine to tell the investigator not right now, but I'll be in touch soon.
Yeah, and it's actually 3 years, at least in Pennsylvania. I think it's 3 years with the feds as well. And so maybe you want to move on and find a new job first and feel a little comfy and not at risk of retaliation, even though, as we've already said, that is illegal. You can do that too. You can go find yourself a new job, get a little comfy there, and then have some physical space from where that wage theft instance occurred and still file your complaint and go through the whole investigation process, etc. I know Jesse, who isn't here tonight, but they said that they did something similar. They weren't interested in continuing to work for their employer after their employer committed wage theft against them. And so they, along with multiple other coworkers, went and found new work, but continued to fight this wage theft case and ultimately won.
Yeah, and that was, I think that whole campaign, I think it's still kind of ongoing, but it started maybe 2-ish years ago. And that employer has been dragging their feet, which is maybe something we should talk about. But it does happen to folks. But the important part is to keep pushing and to be a real pain in their ass, because that's the best way of getting your money back.
Yeah, so this does, I don't know if it's later on or not in the in
it's
our notes, but somewhere in our notes, but Jesse started their case in summer 2019, and I will say that I know that feels like a very long time from 2019 to then get a resolution in 2023. let's all make sure we stop and consider the fact that COVID shut all of the courts down and nobody was working, and so their wage theft case sort of halted for a while. And then obviously once the courts reopened, there was then a serious backlog of cases that needed to get investigated and looked into, et cetera. So I can't make any promises in terms of how long it will take, anyone specifically to fight their wage theft case. But a big part of Jesse's timeline is the fact that COVID shut everything down and then, created a massive backlog, which added on more time. So in theory, had COVID not happened, their case would have been, fought and concluded in a much shorter timeline. And then I think, again, talking about your privacy and the fact that the DOL they're not out to get you specifically. They're not out here trying to find other ways, like where you, the employee, is breaking the law. They are the Department of Labor. They are only concerned with labor related issues. So unless you are, openly admitting to them that you committed kind of a serious crime, I can't imagine that they would necessarily turn the cheek if you said that you took money out of the cash register, which we would never say, that is stealing. That's a criminal offense. Even if your employer is stealing from you, you can't steal from them in return. But if you're non-documented or your visa's expired, or they don't care about that, they care about worker rights and if your employer is stealing from you. So don't feel like, oh my God, I have a criminal record and so I can't talk to the Department of Labor, or I'm not documented, I can't talk to them, or I'm not sure if my employer is paying taxes on me and if I'm technically a legal employee with the federal government and with the IRS. If your employer didn't file the paperwork, that's on your employer. As long as you're filing your taxes, you're good, but also that's between you and the IRS. That has nothing to do with the Department of Labor, right?
Yeah. I mean, the Department of Labor, their jurisdiction is just people who work in the United States. That's all they care about. If the work is done in the States, you are owed that money, plain and simple. Everything else is outside the purview of their jurisdiction.
Yeah. And they're pretty clear about that too. I mean, I have sort of tried to get some advice about so on one of my prior lives, Jordan, I think maybe you were watching, my former employer was harassing me in the comments, and I had reached out to them saying, hey, you do have a recommendation on where to report this harassment? And they were kind of that's outside our purview. So they're pretty strict about staying in their lane. Anyways, so I think now we've kind of covered obviously the complaint process is confidential. Whether you talk to the Department of Labor or not, it's confidential. You should expect to hear from the Department of Labor within hopefully a couple of business days. Make sure you're following up. They're going to launch an investigation. An investigation does take time. So I don't want anyone to feel as though, this is going to be a really quick process. It could take months for them to conduct this investigation. But, it is important to still follow through with this process. It does create, a record with the Department of Labor if they find that, your employer has violated your rights. In certain states, there can be more serious consequences, possibly for serial offenders, etc. And so it's part of holding, like Jordan said, it's part of holding your employer accountable and sort of showing them that you're not going to accept this abuse from them. I mean, maybe folks feel as though abuse is sort of a harsh word, but I'm not sure how else you would characterize it when your employer is taking your labor from you and actively deciding that they're not going to pay you the wages that you guys agreed upon.
Yeah. I mean, I think, yeah, it's kind of normalized, right? The working conditions, even when they're awful. And I think it's part of our mission here is to challenge that narrative and really name it for what it is, which is it is wage theft. We are not experiencing wage theft. They are stealing our money. Like there's a
Yeah.
difference. There is a responsible party. And we have, we have police for every other crime in the world. You go to the police for like your wages, they'll probably just shrug at you. So
Yeah,
it's another reason why for the DOL, we need to beef it up. We need to do all sorts of stuff. But at the end of the day, it's your money and it is theft and you should get that money.
exactly. But, that's where organizing comes in too, because when you're creating pressure on these entities, such as the Department of Labor, it kind of puts a fire under them to like move quicker, right? To not lag on conducting this investigation. They're like, oh, like there's a lot of eyes on us right now. I'm getting a lot of phone calls from folks saying what's going on with this specific thing. And so by like building solidarity, as Rock said in the comments, with your coworkers and organizing as a group, you can again generate that pressure. And organizing can look like various different things. So in Jesse's case, Jesse's employer was refusing to cooperate with, the complaint process, I think. And so they ended up like picketing their employer. They all got together as a group and created signs and picketed, and they formed a group chat to like stay connected and give each other updates about what was, I heard this today from the Department of Labor, and I heard that today, and this is what's going on with my case. And it sort of helps motivate some folks as well. Like, oh, okay, like now I kind of know what to expect maybe with mine. Or they prepped each other for questions that the Department of Labor could possibly ask them and kind of role played those, made folks feel more comfortable with the interview and investigation process. And all of that. And so all of that really helped push their case forward, and continue to generate pressure on the employer, because even though your employer is right now and refusing to pay you and you filed a wage theft complaint, by creating this pressure, your employer could decide, you know what, this is stressing me out, I'm just going to pay you all. They could do that, and then you get your money, and that's what you wanted in the first place, right? So yeah, so I mean, Jordan, you're an organizer. You know more about organizing than I do. You've been working for ROC for 10 years. Talk to the folks about organizing.
Yeah, so we have a saying, which is when it comes to wage theft or any other campaign we have, we want to create a crisis. We can file with the Department of Labor, we can file with the DA or a state agency, but really organizing is what really expedites and motivates an employer to take action. And I can give a million examples. I'll just give one or two for this instance. We had an employer here in my backyard here in Pittsburgh, and they were committing tip theft. They were basically taking the tips from the workers, and it wasn't transparent at all. It was a whole mess. We were planning on filing with the DOL, but we're like, before we do all that, we're going to issue them a demand letter. So we showed up at the workplace one day, outlining all the demands, how much money people are owed, and then we told them that if we do not hear back within a week, we will be canvassing in the neighborhoods, letting everyone know about the tip theft that is happening. So that was on Thursday, and by the time Monday came around, the two owners actually came to our office and agreed to everything. And they ended up saying it was the manager, blah, blah, but they made the workers whole and they took care of everything. And it was because we went public, we put a lot of pressure on them, and they knew that their reputation was really in jeopardy by us going public with what was happening at that restaurant.
Exactly.
So we could talk about a million different stories, but it's really about putting pressure on them because restaurants, as we know, are really is the right word fickle? I'm not sure, but like really, they really depend on their reputation. And if we can put out there they're stealing wages, I mean, that is a real problem for them. And they're going to want to address it because at the end of the day, that's money in their pocket that'll be disappearing with people not going there.
Yeah, I mean, I think back to my experience with Bernie's, and after a week of after my first missed check, I was like, I'm not coming to work till you pay me. And then a week later, we missed another check, and everybody walked out. The same day, another location by the same owner also walked out due to like wage theft and unfair practices. They put a sign in the window and said that they were shut down due to unfair wage practices, and they sent it to the owner, and they were like, we're not like opening back up till you pay us. They had their money 3 hours later. When my location shut down, the manager called the owner and said, hey, we're shut down, we're not going to work till you pay us. Would you like so the owner was like, okay, but like don't put a sign in the window. If anybody asks, just say that we're shut down for like kitchen renovations or something like that. They were shut down for like a week. Like they shut down on Saturday. They didn't reopen until like maybe Friday. And in that time, I posted my TikTok. So they shut down on Saturday. I posted my TikTok on Monday. I got paid on Tuesday, but not everybody got paid on Tuesday. And then on Thursday, the rest of the wages were delivered, and they reopened on like Friday or Saturday. And so it's like, okay, well, clearly this publicity is really what drove the owner to actually pay people, because example number one is the sign in the window at Bernie's Glenside, and then example number two is my TikTok that I posted on Monday and I got paid on Tuesday. So the public pressure does matter, and like Jordan said, they rely on the public and their community and their neighborhood to actually visit the restaurant and order food and pay for it. And that's how they make money. So if folks find out about this, they could decide they're not going to go there anymore. And then that's really harmful to the pocket of the owner. So hit them where it hurts, sometimes that works. But I think organizing can look different, you know what I mean? And I think there's roles for a lot of folks within organizing. So I chose to, take my wage theft experience to TikTok, and that's very public. And that was my choice. And not everyone may feel comfortable with blasting their employer on TikTok, or, standing outside the restaurant and picketing, something that's very public like that, where their employer is definitely going to know that it's them, right? So do you have any thoughts or, ideas or, experiences on how you can maybe organize, or what are some rules for folks who don't feel so comfy being in the spotlight and being public?
Yeah, I mean, I think this is the importance of solidarity and working with your coworkers, because everyone has different skill sets. Everyone is interested in doing different things and different comfort levels. The story I just referenced a few minutes ago, one of the folks who was less comfortable kind of being public, they're the ones who actually helped draft the letter. And then it was the other folks who really did more of the, confrontational, in my view, fun stuff. But there's definitely different spaces people can take up of even providing like support behind the scenes of like, I'm with you every single way. If the manager asks me anything, I won't say anything. Like, I'm on your side. Anything they do mention to me, I'll let you all know. Keeping strong communication, that's all very helpful.
Yeah. I know in my case, we launched an online petition. So, that's another way is like, if you want to draft a petition and launch it, and sign it, it just said, we used coworker.org, and it just said, we got over 2,000 signatures. So it just says 2,000 signatures, right? And so, your employer can't look at that and see a list of every person that signed that petition. Usually when you sign a petition, that maybe there's an option for your name to be like anonymous or public or what have you. So that's another way that you can sort of support folks. You can help folks if they, maybe want to be on social media. You can help them film or come up with creative ideas, or you can help, again, like Jordan said, draft a demand letter, or maybe talk to some of the folks that still work there, but like on the side, after hours, try to kind of recruit more members. So, it's worth, when you are starting to organize, discussing like what everybody's, needs and wants are out of this campaign, but also sort of doing a poll of how comfortable everybody feels with being exposed in the public, and also a poll of everybody's strengths and what are some things that they feel that they can contribute to the cause, because it's important to make everyone feel like they're playing a part and like they have a role. And the more folks that are involved, the more publicity you can generate, which just can help move your case further, faster.
Yeah. I mean, it's definitely teamwork is the best way to approach organizing. Sometimes we get lucky. Sometimes people are really skilled and are really great communicators, and they can really push their story out there. But the more folks we have on board, definitely the stronger the case will be, and the faster you'll probably get your money.
And then just to reiterate this, I know we've talked a lot about rights, but this organizing activity, you and your coworkers getting together, talking about your wage theft experience, writing a demand letter, picketing, doing a petition, whatever, that's protected activity. So, you are protected by law. The National Labor Relations Board has a ton of different laws and rules around, workers have the right to discuss their wages. They have the right to bring issues such as wage theft or other wage concerns or unfair labor practices. They have the right to bring that to the attention of their employer and ask their employer to do better. They have the right to protest and picket. So make sure that you look into the National Labor Relations Act and study up on that, because your employer could try to assume that you don't have this knowledge and say, this is illegal, or I'm gonna have you arrested for picketing outside my restaurant, or whatever. So make sure that that what you're doing is protected, and that can just help better make you and everyone else feel reassured while you're doing this, right? That no one's gonna try to, that you can't really get into too much trouble.
Yeah. One of the biggest questions and concerns and like mentions we get is people are like, oh, I'd love to do this, but like we are an at-will state. Or they mention like we're a right to work state, which is actually about unionizing. But the biggest thing we get is people say they're an at-will state so they can get fired for any reason. And the truth is there's actually many federal laws that supersede at-will legislation. You are protected. They cannot discriminate against you for race, religion, ethnicity, creed, that kind of stuff. They also cannot retaliate for you speaking up about your working conditions with your coworkers. If you are trying to organize for better working conditions, that is a federal right that you have no matter what state you are in. And if they retaliate, you should hit us up, send us a DM. We'll file an unfair labor practice charge, and we'll work with you to get your money back, your job back, and to hold that employer accountable.
Exactly. So, solidarity with your coworkers. Make sure that you are not only filing the wage theft complaint, but you're knowledgeable about your rights, that you're taking steps to increase that public awareness, that public pressure that can help move your case forward by either your employer paying you, what you're owed, and or the Department of Labor feeling that pressure and, putting the foot on the gas a little bit in terms of the investigation for your case. My case is currently in the stages of wrapping up, and I truly feel as though it would have taken so much longer had I not been creating a lot of this pressure by being on TikTok and working with ROC and having meetings with the Department of Labor and doing a demand letter delivery and flyering in different communities where he has businesses, etc. All the public hears about that. Your neighbors, they hear about that, and then they're like all talking about it, and then they're talking to other folks, and word gets around, right? Like, so it does show that like this pressure matters. So just to kind of recap some of the things that we've talked about here tonight. Jordan, I think we're kind of nearing the end of this live. I think we're right at 45 minutes. So I don't want to keep folks on here too long. Extreme Michael McDonald voice, taking it to the streets. Am I going to like show something about myself if I don't know who Michael McDonald is?
Isn't that the Doobie Brothers? Yacht Rock. I'm guessing it's the Doobie Brothers.
Yeah. So now I need to sign up for Yacht Week, it sounds like.
It's the Doobie Brothers. Yeah. I'm not gonna do an well. No, I'm not gonna do
an impression.
It's something like oh geez, here we go. Like taking it to the streets, something like that. I know
so I'm terrible at knowing like people's names. So I can hear a song and recognize the song, but I may have absolutely zero clue who sings it, right? So especially if it's a song that's just kind of like pop culture or in movies a lot, or just kind of one of those that like a lot of people have heard of. I Googled the Doobie Brothers. Looks like they're basically like 70s music. So we've got a real 70s fan in the comments here. Sounds like 70s rock.
Karaoke version next time. Do this all in karaoke song, something like that.
I still haven't seen your dance moves, Jordan. This is staying alive. Staying alive. Staying alive.
Doing the best I can right now. I feel like a puppet, but
yeah. So, is there anything that you want to leave folks with, Jordan?
All I would say is like you have the power. Like the reason why the restaurant industry there's so prevalent with wage theft and everything else is because it has become normalized. But we can take that power back. And last year alone, the DOL, they recovered I think $27 million, which is actually a drop in the bucket compared to what we know is out there. But you do have the power, and you should take advantage of that. There are groups like ROC, like us. We're happy to help. You got folks like Catherine who are really leading the way by example. End of the day, it's your money. You're working for that. None of us would be working 40 hours as volunteers in restaurants if we didn't have to. So get your freaking money because you earned it.
Exactly. Yeah, don't give up on the fight. Change doesn't happen unless you are willing to fight. And it can be a long fight, but wouldn't it be great if like you won that fight? Like think of how great you would feel. Wouldn't it be great if maybe you got some new legislation or something passed as a result? Like there's a lot of different things that you can do to make things better so that in the future, maybe you don't experience wage theft, or you experience wage theft, but the ramifications for your employer are, exponentially worse, or something, just to create a better environment for yourself and your coworkers. Because everyone deserves to be treated with dignity. Everyone deserves to be paid for their labor, and to be able to put food on the table and gas in their gas tank. You know what I mean? And so so I guess in the future, it says on my notes here that I am going to be hopping onto a ROC United live. So we're going to be switching some roles here. And we're going to be unpacking some organizing strategies around hard conversations. So, how do you approach your coworkers and have that conversation of like, let's band together as a group and fight this? And how do you maybe combat some of those things that people might say as like reasons why they don't want to or can't organize? Does that sort of sum it up?
Yeah. End of the day, we got to be taking it to the streets, as the commenters say. So that's what we'll be doing next time.
So be on the lookout for that. I'll do some TikToks about it. I'm sure ROC will be doing some TikToks to promote it. But yeah, thank you all for joining us tonight. Thank you, Jordan, for subbing in for Jesse. I will let Jesse know that you were a great sub and they can count on you for the future.
I appreciate it. All right. Y'all have a good evening.
Bye.